Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Is that part of the episode?
Yeah, yeah, because this film is, we're keeping that, and we're keeping this bit as well. Hi, Movie Night, Andy and Gabe. I'm Andy.
And I'm Gabe, how's it going?
And I will reiterate, damn, son, where'd you find this? Because you sent me this film, which I then had to find on Dailymotion, because it was not available to stream legally anywhere in the UK. It did not have a DVD release. The only thing I could have possibly maybe done was buy it on VHS, but I would have had to have like literally travelled across town and gone through the loft, that's the attic for you Americans, to find a VHS player, and on top of that it might not have arrived in time. So no one knows what this film is according to you, and I'm starting to believe you because I have two fun facts. The first is this film came out when my mother-in-law was probably in her late teens and she'd never heard of it. Also, there were two Reddit threads about this movie on all of the internet. One of them was that pointing out that there was a couple references to this film in a later Kurt Russell film, and the other was someone sharing a photograph of their mum on set because she was an extra as a cheerleader, and there was a photograph of her with Robin Williams, and that was all there was on Reddit for this film as well.
Absolutely nobody anywhere ever besides me and my family has ever heard of this movie, and it has Kurt Russell and Robin Williams in it.
That's what
I find that to be so unbelievable that it's worth doing this. We're going to talk about other things about this movie, oh boy are we, but it's worth doing this just to talk about that. This has Robin Williams and Kurt Russell in a comedy together, a sports comedy together, and nobody has ever heard of this. Just to give you a little bit of background, the only reason I have is this was a very common rental in my family. We used to rent this movie very often and watch it, and my parents liked it, and that's why I know about it. And apart from that, never would have heard about it, and neither would anyone else.
Yeah, literally, I would still not have heard of it to this day. And what's mad about that is I like Kurt Russell. I think he's a good actor. I think he's a lot of fun. But I really, really love Robin Williams. I think Robin Williams is one of the greatest actors to ever lace up a pair of acting boots.
Good reference.
Yeah, I think he is absolutely fantastic at pretty much everything he's done. And every time I've heard someone say they don't like Robin Williams, they've always come off kind of like they're just an arsehole.
I don't like Robin Williams. I don't like Robin Williams. I really do. As a standalone guy, no. When he's with other people, he can be toned down enough to where he can be part of an ensemble, but alone, I don't like him, so I guess I come off as kind of an asshole.
So, the thing I love about Robin Williams, and that's something we're really going to get in here, I actually, I'm going to quote someone else because they said it better than I ever could. George Ruckle Schmidt, when he talked about 1 Hour Photo, which is an absolutely fantastic film, maybe Robin Williams' best performance, and one that I'd love to cover on this show sometime soon.
I've never seen it, so we should.
He said, Robin Williams resonated with me as an actor, not because he was good at being funny, but because he was good at being sad. And I want to get into that later because I think that's fucking true of this movie as well. But let's talk about The Best of Times.
Yes, I'm genuinely curious. What did you think of this movie?
This movie, which I had never seen. This movie with whom I had never met. It made me ask myself a question, which was, can a movie that offers no surprises, that is beat for beat exactly the movie you think it's going to be, still be worthwhile? And how fair is it to judge a movie for failing to surprise you? Last week we talked about Avatar, and the majority of the complaints involving Avatar that aren't lies are people saying that the plot was too derivative. To which my thought has always been, if the movie is effective, it doesn't matter if the plot's derivative. This film was 100% exactly what I thought it was going to be from the opening frame, and I still really liked it.
Ah.
What do you think of it?
So I have a slightly different take. From my experience watching this movie for the first time since 1993 was a little bit personal, tailored to myself. This was a movie that I watched when I was a little kid, and kind of just accepted it for what it was. My parents thought it was funny, so I guess I thought it was funny. Watching it now, 30 years later as an adult, I have a lot of problems with it. I think that just about every portion of this film is broken in some way. You're right that it doesn't offer any surprises, that it's beat for beat exactly what you think it's going to be, but I think it's also very deceptive. Robin Williams' character
is mental.
Well, so maybe we should start there. This was very early in Robin Williams' movie career. This was before Good Morning Vietnam. This was after Mork and Mindy, and there wasn't that much.
We're already getting too far into it. This isn't Avatar, which everybody's seen, where we can just kind of talk about it in the knowledge the audience has seen.
Oh, right.
What is this film? No one has seen it. This is literally...
You're right.
The first piece of video on the internet that I have seen that is going to critically analyse this film in any way. It might be the first piece of critical literature about this film since it came out in the 80s.
I have seen, in fact, I investigated that actually. There are at least two other microscopic channels like ours who have done podcasts about this, but it was for like it was like something they did during the Super Bowl or something, because this movie's about football. Okay, Robin Williams plays a character named Jack, and in 1972 he plays a game of football with Kurt Russell, whose character is called Reno Hightower. So Jack and Reno are from a little town called Taft in California. It is a small town very close to a large town called Bakersfield. And for 100 years, the Bakersfield high school football team has, as they say in my co-host's country, trounced Taft.
As I would say,
obliterated them.
Had their pants down for a century.
Yes, they absolutely annihilated the Taft High School team for 100 years. It's like a tradition that every year the Taft High School football team gets obliterated by Bakersfield. Well, in 1972, Robin Williams' character and Kurt Russell's character are playing on a team that actually has a chance to beat Bakersfield for the first time in about 100 years, because Kurt Russell's character is such a great quarterback. It's the last play of the game. Bakersfield is, if they score, they win. If they don't score, they lose. Last play of the game, the ball is spiked to Kurt Russell's character. Kurt Russell lets fly. He gets hit by 100 linebackers, and he busts his knee open. Career-ending injury, but a great pass to Robin Williams' character. All he has to do is catch the ball and run it into the end zone, and Taft beats Bakersfield for the first time ever, but he fucking drops it. We then go forward, what was it, like 15 years later, 13 years later, or something like that? And Robin Williams' character is mortified over his dropping the ball. It, according to the movie, it's affected his life adversely. And Reno, Kurt Russell's character, he never became an NFL quarterback. He works on vans. They both have problems with their marriages. And Robin Williams gets the idea early on in the movie to have a basic, what they would call now an alumni game. Play that game over again and see if he can actually, as it were, catch the ball this time. And that's basically the plot of the film. Is there anything I left out, or?
No, the only thing that you left out, which is an important part of the film, is how the game and the obsession with the game and these two men's respective midlife crisis affect their home family life, which is where I think there's a little bit more going on than just that. But that's a fairly accurate summary of the whole thing. I would say. Okay. And I would also say that in truth, now that you have heard that summary, you kind of don't need to watch the film.
Because spoilers, he catches the ball at the end and everything's fine.
Yeah.
Old Yeller dies at the end of Old Yeller.
Yeah.
So now having said that, I'll go back to where I started. So this was very early in Robin Williams' movie career. This was after Mork and Mindy and before, I almost said Saving Private Ryan, before Good Morning Vietnam, and there wasn't much else in between those things. Good Morning, yeah.
That's a movie. So, I would love to see Robin Williams in Saving Private Ryan.
In Saving Private Ryan, yes, that would be epic. Somebody should do a deep fake of that.
He would have turned up and given a very good, serious, dramatic performance. He always knew what type of movie he was in, but anyway.
Yes. No, agreed. But to me, his performance in this movie came off very confused. Because he seemed to have been stuck in that sort of robotic, weird Mork and Mindy kind of thing. I didn't quite get what he was about. I didn't quite get what anybody liked about him. The problem is, okay, so Jack drops the ball. They don't win that game. 13 years later, you have to accept the premise of the movie that their lives were somehow diminished by losing this game. But how? So Jack has a good job at the bank. He's got a big house. He's got a family. He has problems with his family, but his problems with his family have to do with the fact that he's obsessed with football. It's not really the fact that he dropped the ball. Nobody seems to really hold that against him. His father-in-law, which I'll talk about in a minute, makes fun of him for it, but that's about it. I don't understand. I don't understand in what way would his life have been better if he had caught that ball. His life is already pretty good. Everybody in the town, nobody seems to remember that, or the town doesn't seem to hold that as like an open wound that they never got over. They have their elk club or whatever. They all seem pretty happy themselves. Reno likes his job. He's happy with his life. He may have slowed down a little bit and gotten a little bit, as you say, midlife crisisy, but he's fine, apart from his marital problems, which also don't have anything to do with the fact that he never became a quarterback. He's kind of a jerk. And Jack is an absolutely insufferable loser idiot. Nothing about that changes at the end of the movie. You have these arcs that they seem like arcs, but they're not, because none of these people change. Nothing about them training for this game or playing this game again connects in any way to them reuniting with their wives after they get kicked out of the house. I don't understand you that. Where is this movie coming from? I think one of the pieces of evidence that I would use to support this is the fact that Jack's father-in-law is portrayed as such a cartoon, over the top, dickhead, because if he wasn't, you would immediately agree with him. I wouldn't want Robin Williams' character married to my daughter either. He gave him a job. What I don't understand.
In total fairness, I'm going to defend him just a little bit here. He does have a cardboard cutout in his office of the man he wishes his daughter had married instead of Robin Williams.
But so would I if he married that dickhead. What is there to like about this Jack character? What in him? Absolutely. And the other thing is, I'll go back to what I said before. Nobody else seemed to be affected by this game. He fucked it up. It was his fuck up. Only he was affected by this. So if they play this game again, Reno likes his memories of when he was a high school quarterback. Nobody remembers that he blew a pass or anything. Every time he mentions this, he said whenever anybody talks to him, they exaggerate the number of touchdowns that he threw. They remember him as being great. He didn't want to damage his legacy. So if Jack plays this game and they fuck it up and they get beat 82-0, now he's adversely affected Reno because of his own bullshit. It was only his thing, and he put everybody else in this really bad potential position. I mean, the movie let him win at the end of the game, so everything was fine. But I don't know. This movie doesn't work. I couldn't stand either of their wives. I couldn't stand. I love Kurt Russell and everything, so of course, and he's playing Kurt Russell in this movie, so of course he's great. I couldn't stand Jack. I couldn't stand either of their wives. That dinner scene bombed and went on way too long. That's another thing. Let me kind of ramble about this too. This movie wasn't funny either. I didn't think any of the there's very little that I could think of that I even got a chuckle out of. It wasn't a very good comedy. It wasn't really, I don't know. Watching it again for the first time in 30 years, this movie did not work for me. I will close my comments by saying one thing I did like about it is the fact that it portrays small town California, and just about any Hollywood movie that's set in California, it's basically LA or San Francisco, and you never see really small town California. I lived in the San Joaquin Valley for quite a few years. It really is like that. Most of California is like that. And so that was kind of
real
cool
towns that they shot in, like that.
Yes,
Town Taft, real place, and so is the other place, which is named.
I've been to Taft and Bakersfield and Fresno and Oildale, so I've been all around that area. Yes, they are very real, and they are very much like that. So that was cool. Anyway, that's my unpacking of my experience with it. What'd you think?
So something that I liked little moments in this film, and there were plenty of things that made me laugh, like when they're talking about reversing time, like winding back the clock as an unnatural act, and the woman who I'm confident was a prostitute goes, "There's no such thing as an unnatural act. I would know.
I should know." Yeah, that was good. I admit that was good.
I also liked how Kurt Russell's house, he had what looked like a brick fence until Robin Williams crashed into it, and it turned out it was nothing but loose bricks that just toppled everywhere.
And Kurt Russell, being the great fucking pro that he is, he gave him this look like fuck it. That was pretty good. I like that.
So there were little things. There were little things that I liked, like when they have their first interaction. And they're talking, you kind of establish that they're not friends, but they do get on. They have this moment where he goes to throw the keys to Jack, but Reno doesn't. He goes to throw them, and then he clenches them in his fist, and he just places them in his hands. Just that little sort of thing of like, I don't trust you, and you can tell he is kind of mad about it. The thing that I would complain about with this film, the main thing that is jumping out in my head now, is that he says, "Why did he pass the ball to me?" And his wife goes, "You see him once a week, why don't you just ask him?" And we never do find out. And that would have been something that I think I would have liked to know. in the video game Yakuza 5, there's a similar scene in this in which two characters are playing baseball together, and they were involved in a very controversial baseball game that ruined one of their careers. And that character, he was not very good at hitting curveballs, and they finally, in their 30s, go, let's wind back the clock and see if you could really strike out on me. So when the guy, his opponent, finally does throw the curveball, he hits it, and he asks him, he goes, so how did you know I was going to throw the curveball? And he said, because I've been waiting for that curveball for 25 years. Or something like that. It might not have been quite that long.
I get you.
But like, there was a question there about the two of them and how they opposed each other as players that does get answered. And I felt like this was a film where that would have been nice to know, but this is a very 80s movie where you had your big 80s movies, the ones everybody knows that I don't even need to bring up, and then you had about 60 of this.
Yes. True.
And yeah, so what I looked into the director, and the director, he is what we'll call a jobbing director, where he's not one of those movie directors like a Spielberg or a Scorsese or a Robert Eggers or even Ridley Scott, as mental as Ridley Scott's movies often are, but where there is a vision. This is a guy who I don't think has tons of creative vision. He's just good at making the movie that the studio wants him to make. He worked on... he directed Tomorrow Never Dies, the James Bond film with Pierce Brosnan. He also directed Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. So... Did
he really? Yes. I didn't see that. Wow.
But that gives you a feel for the kind of director he is.
Sure.
I think part of the reason this film is probably quite paint by numbers to a degree is that this was really a film that I think was clearly made just to turn a quick profit, just a feel-good sports drama. They were popular at the time. Two prominent actors, and just get a director in who knows how to shoot a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the impression I think. I think what backfired is that this movie did not turn a profit.
No, didn't.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know the first thing about football, but I didn't feel like I needed to. So he's clearly directing competently in that regard, where I was following the logic of, okay, they've got to get further down the field, and obviously I know that much about it, but obviously no one watches that shit here.
Sure. Yeah. That was probably the impetus for this being such a popular rental too, is that my dad does like football, and that's probably why we saw it so often. As weird as it sounds, considering how much I just shit all over this movie at the beginning, I gotta say, if somebody had the chance to watch it for free, I think I would actually recommend it. That you see it for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that it's if you're into like actors and their early careers, if you like Robin Williams or if you like Kurt Russell, this is a really cool. It's really interesting to see them this young in a movie like this. And the second thing is, one of the things that did work in this film was the game. It was well done. The message of the movie is good.
Like,
what's that?
The game, when I was watching it, I was like, these boys are actually tackling each other into the mud.
Yeah.
That was... I know people will be like, hey, I watch NFL all the time and they were pulling their shots. Okay, have a 190-pound man lightly tackle you into the mud and see how comfortable you are. Like, they were not fucking around with
yeah,
this.
I don't think football fans would say that, actually. I think they would say, yeah, they were really doing it, and a lot of the time they were. And, you know, as somebody who watches football, American football a lot, it does look like that. He was really good at making it look like the way it actually looks. And the game worked.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say that another thing that I think this film does actually deserve a bit of credit for is making Robin Williams as a football player, even like former, kind of credible. Because if you told me I was going to make a movie where Robin Williams stars as a former high school football player, I would not necessarily see it, but I do believe that he was a football player, and I believe enough in the way that he moves and sort of talks about the game that's like, yeah, I believe that he played, kind of thing. And that is, I think, amusingly enough, I think that is also kind of against type, while still sort of being the sort of character you might expect Robin Williams to play.
You know, if he had been portrayed as a good football player, I don't think it would have worked. But part of the deal was the fact that he was lousy, and one of the things that does work emotionally is the fact that he wasn't very good, and at the end he is able to do it because of what they call in boxing movies heart. So that combination of things actually did work in the movie's favor. I like the message of you can go back and make good on something. I've had experiences in my personal life, maybe in some ways informed by my seeing this movie so young, that it does leave you with an optimistic feeling that you can sort of turn things around, even though it was never clear to me as a kid how much of a problem the movie has getting to that point. How sort of
well, they make a lot of
not great
deal about
was
how
at getting
it's going to be it's going to revitalize the town, because the town is they always say like the town is a hellhole and a dump and a fiery pit of despair where nothing but the lowest cockle shells of humanity live. And I was just like, it looks fine.
Yeah, no, it was fine. And how is it going to change after you win a game? What they fixed up that theater, and that's like the only scene that you get to indicate that anything has changed for these people, because otherwise you wouldn't know it, because nothing does change. That was
if it improved the economy of the town, then fair enough, but you don't see that really happening. And also like, obviously, you know, an alumni game is not going to massively improve the economy of a town for anything more.
No, and
I think the idea is that it gives the town something to be proud of, because we do this thing as a species where we get really proud when a bunch of men doing a sport that we're not participating in risk their lives for their own personal glory, and then we parasitically leech off of it. But
boy, that's one of the most that was one of the most absolutely cynical descriptions of what sports is that I've ever heard from anybody. I'm surprised at you.
Am I wrong?
Anyway, that's a long conversation.
But, that's what. But you know, that's the gist that I was kind of getting, is it gives the town something to be proud of, because they're kind
something to believe in. Yeah,
rubbish.
sure. And for a you don't particularly like team sports, do you?
No, I don't like any team sports. I'm like if it's on TV, I'm not going to be like, get this filth off.
Yeah,
I might think it, but no, I'm not into any team sports, any ball games. I like combat sports, you know, boxing, mixed martial arts, wrestling, obviously Thai boxing. Obviously for you, because you know me personally, but
yeah, for sure.
But you know, and I like gymnastics. I competed as a swimmer, so like there are sports that I obviously like, But
I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you competed as a swimmer.
yeah. I competed in disabled galas.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I was very.
Well,
young.
that's cool.
I was very young at the time, but yeah. No, I competed as a swimmer, and they say, I'm not completely anti-sports, but the second it gets to a bunch of people chasing a ball or a puck around, it doesn't do it for me, and and I think the reason why it doesn't do it for me is actually part of what I do like about this film. What I have always been drawn to in combat sports is that there is a one-on-one confrontation with another person, and while you do have a corner helping you, at the end of the day, in the ring or the cage, it's you versus them. And it's easy for me to focus as a viewer on how these two athletes try to outwit and overpower each other. And I find that that's something I can't really do with team sports. I like to see how two individuals sort of figure each other out. And the best of times actually has that aspect in the football game, because Weedy Robin Williams is put against Dr. Death, this huge
Dr. Death
man out on parole, and if his name's Dr. Death, God knows what he did. And it gives you him having to find a way to overpower him, because he is nowhere near physically capable of besting him. So he has to find like a little quick workaround. You have the reincorporation of that little dance he does for his wife, where he does a little spin of Rooney and gets out of there. Very, very, very basic stuff. Very basic stuff that anyone will put.
Yeah. So,
but there's still a one-on-one conflict.
Yeah. So were you, depending on what kind of a it's because there's people watch football for a variety of different reasons. Obviously, for me, it was always to this day, I'm always interested in who the head coach is and who the rest of the coaches are. Like, basically, the coaching staff is something that I'm very interested in, kind of for that reason. Because for me, it's almost like two generals seeing whose strategy is going to win out in the end, and how they build the team. Team building is another thing I'm really into, and this is all from my dad. This is what my dad was into in the 80s with the 49ers. They had a coach named Bill Walsh, and he was like a strategic genius, basically. And he did for Bill Walsh did for the 49ers basically what this game did or was supposed to do for the town. It completely elevated that team to a championship quality team when they were a laughing stock before that. And I always thought that was really cool. But if you're a serious football fan who's aware of those things, you're going to be aware of those matchups. Like one of the things that you're going to be watching for is who's covering the receiver. Is the receiver going to beat him off the line? Is he going to run a route that breaks the coverage and stuff? You're going to be aware of all those things. But if you're just kind of watching it on TV, it's going to look like just a bunch of people running around randomly.
The sentiment in Britain, which is a sentiment I don't agree with because it's on the face of it stupid, is that the level of tactics in American football is inferior to the level of tactics in football. And I have always thought that was clearly ridiculous, because one is a stop and start game, the other is a continuous game. They are just going to have different approaches to strategy. I thought that was clearly on the face of it dumb. But what I liked about this film was I felt it did a very easy job at communicating success in the game just through the editing, really, to the point where I feel like I'm only aware of the basics of that game, and I don't really know how it's scored, but I could tell just from watching it that the further they got up the track, they score and blah blah blah. If my friend who I make music with watches this, he is going to be weeping tears, because he is a massive Green Bay Packers fan, despite living in London with me.
Interesting.
But he's gonna be like, man, this is all such basic shit, Andrew. You should know.
I've got a lot of respect for the Pack. I do. Most of my my mom's side of the family is all Packers fans, and my dad's side of the family splits between Raiders and 49ers fans. So I've got both of those teams in my family history.
Saw the Packers live in New York.
Oh, wow, that's cool. That's really cool.
There's a point where Robin Williams dresses up as a tiger, and Robin Williams dresses up as the mascot for the other team, which is a tiger, I should say, and he just vandalizes their town hall, their women, a gavel,
their elk club or whatever. Yeah. And he fucks them up. It's a false flag operation.
Yeah, it's literally a false flag operation. And the second everyone walks in and they're like, "Oh my god, what's happened to our clubhouse?" He went, "Simple goddamn terrorism."
Yeah, that's true.
I thought that was very funny, one following a false flag operation, but he then goes to explain the nuances of terrorism. So many references to nuclear bombs in this film. Very funny.
There are,
But later on, he puts the tiger mask, and I swear I'm not talking about the wrestler, but he puts the tiger mask into his sports bag and takes it into the changing room. And I'm like, all right, here we go, we're doing this, are we? Sure. And he goes, "Oh, just, have a drink, reach into my bag. And I'm like, is this movie going to be incredibly dumb? And then Kurt Russell finds the bag, and he shakes Robin Williams down for his lunch money because he's so mad. And then he goes out and he starts playing well, because when he's pissed off, he's motivated, and then everyone's shit gets together. And at first the movie was smarter than me, because I was like, okay, this is dumb. And then a few minutes later, Kurt Russell goes, "You must have known I would find out about that eventually." And he was like, "Yeah, I know." I was like, "Oh, we did it deliberately, okay." Yeah, which makes sense, because Robin Williams is a nutcase in this film. Let's talk about how he's a nutcase.
Sure, go ahead.
Right, this is the second you said to me, "Let's talk about this film, here's what it's about," I went, "Oh, okay, it's a midlife crisis movie. Cool.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that he's got a fairly nice job and house and family, it's clear that he's got his own internal sort of demons, and that he could never let it go. Like, the problem is kind of him. And it seems like the other characters, to my viewing at least, kind of acknowledge that there's not really that, it's not a big deal. It was a fucking football game. It really doesn't matter. Even Kurt Russell going, like, if we lose, well, it is just a game at the end of the day.
Yeah.
He blackmails, cons, cheats, and terrorisms his way to get in this fucking game.
Yes, he does.
And the only ways this film surprised me were in the moments where I, honest to God, thought it actually might subvert my expectations, and then didn't. When he goes, "We're down to the last second, I'm not throwing you the ball because you're just not that good. I'm sorry, everyone's here to see you either make it or lose, but I'm not risking this game." I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Why do this on a fluke? But then they did it, and then there was a moment where I thought that he might actually drop the ball, but he discovers his own self-worth because he got all the town invested, and that it didn't really matter. And I thought, oh, maybe they'll do that, and then he catches the ball and scores the touchdown. I went, this was 1986, baby.
It was 1980 fucking 6, Andrew. Of course he's gonna catch it.
So I guess the question is, so you would say you didn't particularly like this one.
Yeah, I had a lot of problems with it. I like what it was trying to do. It just didn't work.
This is I think this one's more of like a fun novelty. I laughed a couple times fairly loudly. I laughed at a couple of the lines like "simple goddamn terrorism," there's no such thing as an unnatural act, I would know. And I did get
Yeah.
a big laugh at the cardboard cutout of the man he wished his daughter married. But I like how at the end he's like, "Oh, that's my son-in-law that made that," and it's just kind of almost like throwaway, like they don't even care by this point. It's like, oh, okay, sure. I don't think this film is great. I think if this film truly was a hidden gem, I feel like people would have still talked about it. Like last week, I said we did Avatar last week. We didn't do Avatar last week. We did The Duelists last week.
That's right.
But you said how The Duelists was one of the only true cult movies that was actually like a small following. I feel like if this film was better, it could have had something like that. I don't think it's bad. I think it's, but I think that even though it had two big stars that you think would kind of elevate, I think on the other hand, it's also a movie that is so typical of its time. There wasn't tons, I think, to make it really stand out, and I have to wonder if it's. This sounds really harsh, but I understand why this film was forgotten. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I appreciate it. I think it's fine, but I get it. I see why it wasn't really.
It's not even bad enough to be loved. It's not even bad enough to be remarkable. It's not even remarkably bad. How do you like that? It's just meh.
Yeah,
and
it's all right. I would say I liked it. I think it's got these moments. I think for me that I was thinking, and whenever I watch a film with Robin Williams in, I always sort of play the game of, would this film have worked without Robin Williams? And I usually find the answer's no. I think if Robin Williams and Kurt Russell weren't leading this would maybe it probably wouldn't have been as good.
I agree.
I think the women in this film, I thought it was kind of funny how they would be like, no, we're not going to talk to him. Well, maybe we'll talk to him, and they try and discourage each other from talking to their ex-husbands and that. I think the women in this film completely unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of the marital problems sort of served a function more than it actually made sense. And I'll admit, when he wheels the TV set out to try and watch the game while they're having their make or break dinner there, and he's trying to do both things at the same time, and he's reacting to the TV, and then he has to I'll admit that was kind of funny. It makes no sense. Of course, he would never do anything like that, and nobody would do anything like that. But it's a comedy, that was okay.
I like when he. Oh my god, I'm going to say this sentence. I like when he goes into the woman's bathroom, and then, he talks to her, and he says, we're going to get the shit kicked out of us, but and I know I've got no right to ask you this, but I'd really like if you'd dance with me. And I think Robin Williams is so sincere, and he's so good at being emotionally vulnerable. He's and that's why I wanted to come back to when I said earlier that of Robin Williams good at being sad. I think this is why. There are a couple factors. The first is that Robin Williams tragically died.
Sure.
The second is that Jim Carrey is still popular as an actor, like where people fondly remember Jim Carrey. But I think the reason why, even though they're both great physical comedians, like Robin Williams doing the aerobics with all of the football guys, and how like he's such great physical comedy, but I think the reason why I don't think we necessarily think of Jim Carrey quite as fondly as Robin Williams is that Robin Williams is an actor who could genuinely do anything. I have seen Robin Williams be funny. I've seen him be sad and vulnerable. I've seen him be absolutely terrifying in films, whereas a lot of comedians of this time, and I don't mean to just dog on Jim Carrey, I really like Jim Carrey, and I'm really jealous of how comfortable he is in his own body with his own movement. That's something that, like, my attempts as an actor, I've never been particularly good at. But Jim Carrey, I felt when Jim Carrey had to be serious and emotionally sincere, it kind of always used to feel to me like a comedian doing the serious scene. Whereas with Robin Williams, I always felt like that kind of melted away. You just got something truly very sincere.
He could have done only serious roles for the rest of his career, and it would have worked. Whereas somebody, as you say, like Jim Carrey or Adam Sandler or Steve Carell, I don't think it could. I think you're right about that.
Yeah. And Steve Carell and Adam Sandler have both had good dramatic roles.
Yes.
But yeah, like I think
not like that. Not as naturally as a.
Not like that. Like I think a lot of their more serious roles, the novelty comes from the fact that they're good at doing serious roles. Whereas I think the Robin Williams was just kind of like so fluid with what he could do.
Yeah.
Because it was at one point it was considered, he was considered to play the Joker. And I believe he was actually considered to play the Joker for Tim Burton's Batman.
He was, yes.
And I remember talking about this with, of all people, like my year 7 science teacher. And he was like, I think that would have been terrible. And I was like, have you seen him in Law and Order? Have you seen him in Law and Order where he plays the terrorist? I think he probably would have done humour, but I think he would have played that role well.
Well, certainly I don't think it would have been terrible. I don't think that would have been terrible at all. I think it would have been, I think he would have found a way to make it work, as you
like
very
Gene
rightly say he
Wilder.
usually does.
I think he's a bit like Gene Wilder in his versatility. Like,
Yeah,
very,
I agree.
very similar. And one of the things I guess with Robin Williams is that something that this film made me think of a little bit was that it felt for a long time, and I think it still feels this way, that Robin Williams never really had his character. You know, like Johnny Depp has Jack Sparrow, Harrison Ford has Indiana Jones. Robin Williams never had that character that he was associated with, where he was always, I think, bigger than the roles he played. And I think that in some ways you think of like his ability as an actor and you're like, man, he was good, but you don't necessarily, but he overshadows some of those characters that he's played. And that's something I wish he had been able to have both, because he's just in this fucking bargain bin film in 1986 and he's given like this, like absolutely given it his all. I know you said before you think that he was kind of robotic. I think that was him kind of playing up the awkwardness of the character.
Oh, it definitely was. Let me sort of clarify that I wasn't meaning to criticize his performance. It's just sort of how he found this person. If this had been after, let me put it this way, if this had been made after Good Morning Vietnam, I think he would have made a few different choices with it. I think, that's all I mean to say. It wasn't a bad performance by any stretch.
I have nothing to say.
It was so weird because it was just. We'll just finish by saying it was weird just because the character itself was so bizarre. I never understood where this guy was coming from, and I never understood where the movie was trying to tell me he was coming from. I mean, I understand that he is messed up over not catching the ball, but I don't quite understand why, because I have to ask again, what would have changed? What would have been different? You have that, as you very well described, throwaway line at the end where he said, oh, that was my son-in-law. But he never, what did he do to earn his respect? Off the field, like just catching that ball, that's all he had to do? Like, again, these characters, the movie gives the illusion of arcs. There really isn't one. Nothing really changes for these people. And I think if this had been if this had been given a third draft and a polish, I think you would have had a lot more scenes with Jack and Reno changing as people as a result, or maybe they even lose the game, but they change as people, and the town realizes that
they meet up for dinner, right? And something that stuck out to me was that when they do that dinner scene, it was that it's kind of a funny coincidence that their wives are best friends, when the beginning dialogue implies that these two fellas don't really know each other that well. They're like, you see him once a week because he's a mechanic, but then they're knocking on the door together to do this thing. And the reason why the double date, apart from the dialogue, I found it funny because of how they just really have no idea what to talk about. It's a swamp. Oh well, it's just too complicated.
A real mess.
Just proper DNC responses.
Yeah, I agree. It went on way too long, but yeah, I get you.
But what kind of? I looked at that and I was like, wait, are they friends? Because I don't know. It's up until that point, it seemed to me like these two people weren't actually friends.
It may be that they're as friendly with each other as they are because their wives happen to be friends. That would make actually more sense than them like personally like caring to be have a friendship like that. That would make sense to me.
I have nothing to say about Kurt Russell in this film other than that. Yeah, he's just good, isn't he? I don't think he gets to do as much as Robin Williams does. But yeah, he's just a good actor, but I don't have tons to say about him.
Well, he just filled that role so perfectly. I can't imagine anybody else that could have. You want to see him succeed. You want to see him. He's just one of those guys. It was kind of surprising to me to realizing how much of a Kurt Russell fan I am. I just love him on screen. He just has this presence that no other actor before or since has had.
Like they say in American Dad, where they say that the career of Kurt Russell is a miracle. 38 years with no low point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh boy, we should do what was that fucking thing he was in where the cop has a thing for his wife and he has... Oh, fuck. What is it called, Andrew? Unlawful Entry.
Oh,
you should watch that one.
Escape from New York?
No. Unlawful Entry. That one of the most unintentional comedies ever made. We should do that one of these days.
Here's one of those... you find out about castings that almost happened, and people go, "Man, I can't believe that happened. Thank God that didn't happen."
Mm-hmm.
So here's one where I'm going to go against tradition. Before Harrison Ford was cast as Han Solo, the guy they wanted for the part was Kurt Russell.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And some people go, "Wow, imagine how different a film that would have been with Kurt Russell." I think it would have been exactly the same. I have seen the screen test with Kurt Russell. Yeah.
Doing the Han Solo dialogue. He would have been absolutely perfect. He would have been just as good, and as you say, the same as Harrison Ford. It makes complete sense to me that they had him in mind for that.
They're such similar actors.
Yeah.
With the type of roles they play, and also, and also, I think unlike Indiana Jones, where Harrison Ford really, really like embodies the character, and there's very iconic imagery associated with the character and lines and things like that. I think Han Solo is more of a character that I think. Not that anybody could have played, but there are more actors I could have seen as Han Solo than as Indiana Jones. Like,
For sure, yeah.
like Harrison Ford.
I
as
couldn't
Indiana
see
Jones, if you
I
get
couldn't
me.
see Kurt Russell as Indiana Jones. I could definitely see him as Han Solo.
Yeah.
That's to make that
Completely.
comparison. Yeah.
I couldn't, like, for example, originally they wanted Tom Selleck for Indiana Jones, and I could see Tom Selleck doing a good film of that kind, as you would put it.
Sure.
I could definitely see him in a film like that, but not as
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
Of course, because now it's impossible to imagine anybody else in that role now. It's funny. I can see Tom Selleck in that too.
Yeah, so, should we wrap this one up?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got to say about it. I didn't think it was. It's got a lot of problems, as you said. It makes perfect sense that this movie was not remembered in any way, shape, or form, good or bad or otherwise. But if you do have a chance to see it, I actually recommend it for all the reasons I said before. But just it's one of those 80s feel-good sports movies. So take it for what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I came down deciding that I saw it and I liked it. It's not going to go into the Hall of Fame for me, but what it was, I thought it was fine, and I think it's hard for me to get sort of mad at it, like, I think I'm not going to call it the little movie that could, but I appreciate it for what it was. It was nice to see a film where two icons like bounce off of each other, and I to a degree, although what I've said, like, I understand why it was forgotten, I'm still kind of surprised that it was, because, like, Stop or My Mum Will Shoot was the same director.
Yeah. Putting it like that, maybe it's a little surprising that it was as forgotten as it was, just for no other reason than the fact that it was Robin Williams and Kurt Russell in the comedy together. Like, you'd think that it would be at least remembered for that, and it just nobody ever thought about it again.
Final point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to end by talking about how this movie begun. It's not that important, but that bit of music that they play, that bit of American music that I don't remember the name of, ba 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 ba, the bit that Assassins uses.
Mm-hmm.
The opening title of the film is that music being played on the piano, but it's played wrong, and they miss notes and then, like, correct. And I thought that was just like a funny way of kind of showing what kind of film this is going to be and what sort of ideas the film's going to go with just through its opening score, by having
I liked that too.
Yeah,
I'm glad you. I'm really. You know what? Kudos to you for noticing that. I did too. And let me tell you as well, for that, the opening credits do such a fucking good, efficient job at letting you know the backstory of what's going on here without it being boring, and also giving a little bit of tidbits about how the mice descended on the town and all these funny things, and Kid Lester and all that. The opening of that movie was actually really well done.
and with that, we close.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.